All right, in the interest of time, given it's 1:31, we're going to go ahead and get started. We have an hour blocked off for this Q&A session and webinar. First and foremost, I just want to thank everyone for participating. And I really want to thank our team and Robin from SBDC for pulling this together. Obviously, first and foremost, it goes without saying, but we'll say, we hope everyone listening in is listening from a safe, healthy place with their family and loved ones in good care. These are certainly most unprecedented times. I think we all recognize that, and we all recognize the gravity of the situation and the crisis that is presented before us. And we are all working our best and giving our best effort to try to meet the demands, which are truly overwhelming right now for just every individual that is economically impacted. And that's well beyond just business owners. And I don't think anyone will be immune from being impacted by this crisis. So with that, it was about a week ago now that, a week and a half, that our team had launched preparedyork.com. That is where we are trying to send every individual who has any questions or concerns. Our team is actively aggregating and compiling resource information and uploading that seemingly on an hourly basis to preparedyork.com. So if you do have questions, if you do seek resources, there is information there for, again, anyone that has been economically impacted. We have a section for small business owners, section for individuals who may have been dislocated employees, or if you're seeking family or child care, please check out preparedyork.com. We have also recently, in partnership with several of our sister counties in the central Pennsylvania region, launched preparedcentralpa.com. Again, this was just an effort to bring more resources to bear. So if you are outside York, you have the option of certainly going to Prepared York, or you can go to preparedcentralpa.com. Preparedyork.com is also where we are pushing all of our business financial information, and that's really what we're here to talk about today. Specifically, the two programs that are currently available for small businesses, both the SBA Emergency Relief Loan Fund and what was recently launched yesterday by our Commonwealth through the PETA program, the COVID-19 Working Capital Loan Fund. SBA is capped at $2 million, and the PETA loan is capped at $100,000. That's all I'll say on them right now, because we have our two expert panelists who will be giving a brief overview of each of those. And our team is actively tracking all that is going on a federal and state level. Obviously, our Senate passed the stimulus package last night. So we are actively working through all of the details that are included in that legislation. And we know that there will be a deluge of information in the next couple of days as that is signed into law and all of the agencies begin to push out how they will deploy those resources. So please keep in touch with us and keep checking back to preparedyork.com. As we learn more, we will share it with you. And with that, I will say that we are all overwhelmed. And I think we are all trying to wrap our collective arms around this crisis. So bear with us, bear with our staff as they are trying to respond to really the volume of inquiries and inundated requests that we are trying to manage and respectfully manage all expectations. The SBA program applications are open now. The PETA program opened yesterday. You can get to both applications on our website. And it is worth noting, to manage expectations, that right now, currently, there is only $60 million allocated for the entire Commonwealth of Pennsylvania in that PETA loan fund. So if you do the math, and if everyone got $100,000, which we know will not be the case, that's only 600 loans billed throughout the Commonwealth. So if you see your legislators, your state reps, and your senators, please do your best part to advocate that the Commonwealth appropriate more resources to put into that fund. And we will give credit where credit is due, that both our federal and our state government public policymakers are moving swiftly to get these programs moving. But we know that the resources right now, the need far outweighs the resources that we have available. So setting some brief ground rules, we do obviously have all of our participants muted right now. We will ask that you, we did receive your questions at registration. We will address those. We're looking at about 5 to 10 minutes for each, for both Kennetha and Robin, and then we'll get right into Q&A. Please feel free to submit the questions via the chat function, and our staff will field them. If we do not get to all of the questions today, which is certainly a likely scenario, we will do our best to manage all of those and to respond to them. And we'll post questions and answers on our website throughout. If you do have questions for either Kennetha or Robin, please direct it as such, and our staff is monitoring that. And as I said, when we get to the Q&A section, we'll address those. So with that, I will turn it over to, first and foremost, joining us as our two panelists who are both incredibly exhausted, but are subject matter experts to the best one can be when we've just learned about these programs within the last 24 and call it 72 hours. We have Kennetha Hansen, who works for the York County Economic Alliance, a member of our team, phenomenally expert in her field. She is the Director of Economic Development and Financing. And then Robin Bertner, who is the Director of the Small Business Development Center at Shippensburg University. So first and foremost, we're going to turn it over to Kennetha to give a brief overview of the newly launched, now live PETA program through the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania.
Thank you, Kevin. We're going to talk today about a state financing tool. It's a loan program that is funded through really an existing program, if you will. However, having said that, entirely new infrastructure, staffing, technology had to be instituted to launch this. So that's why we're rolling this out and wanting to do a webinar. So we're going to cover today some terms, eligible costs, eligible business loan requirements, talk about who needs a match, interest rates and terms, collateral, and how to apply, as well as I'm going to address, make a few comments about some of the documents that will have to be provided. So next slide. So any business with 100 or fewer full-time employees for profit is eligible to apply. A retail service is defined as a for-profit business that does B2B, there we go, had to move you guys. Business to public service, mercantile, commercial, point of sale. That's going to become important later on. So if you fall into one of those categories, please pay attention to that. An ag processor is any business involved in the management or production of a farm commodity. Next slide. So as I mentioned, for-profit corporation, that could, or a for-profit business, that can be a corporation, an LLC, a partnership, a sole proprietorship. The business must be located in Pennsylvania and again, have less than 100 full-time employees. Part-time employees are not included in that count. That's been a common question we've been receiving. For now, the York County Economic Development Corporation, who is administering this on behalf of the Commonwealth, are entertaining applications for businesses located in York County. Next slide, please. So eligible cost. This is a working capital program, but it has a twist in terms of how the loan request amount will be determined. So this is a working capital loan request that will be based on a look back. That look back period for all businesses except retail and certain service businesses, that look back is 3 months. So an example, best way to explain this is through an example. So if in the last 3 months you have spent $100,000 in operating expenses, that can be payroll, utilities, rent, debt, all of the things up above under working capital. If you have spent, not incurred, but spent, paid for $100,000 of operating expenses, your loan request can be $100,000. And if you are approved, then you may certainly use those funds to then operate your business. If you are a retail or service-based business, the look back is 6 months. And the reason for that is there is a match requirement, and that is a legislative requirement. The state could not get that waived quickly or easily. So using the example, you can go to the next slide, Solly. So using that example, the look back for a service business, if you are a retail service business and you spent $100,000 on operating expenses in the last 6 months, your loan request can be $50,000 or half of that. So that is how you will determine your loan amount and whether a match is required. So you don't have to document that during the application process, but if you are fortunate in getting an approved loan, you will likely need to verify that with receipts in order to go to closing. Next slide. The interest rate for all businesses except ag producers is 0%. If you are an ag producer, the interest rate is 2%. The terms are extremely flexible, if you will. It is a 3-year term with a 12-year amortization. No payments will be due in the first year of that 3-year term. Principal and, if applicable, interest will be due monthly for years 2 and 3, and then there is a balloon payment at the end of year 3. The collateral, these all state loans are collateralized. This is no exception. The loan will be secured by a blanket lien on all business assets currently owned or acquired in the future at the highest lien position available. As well, the loan will be guaranteed by any individual or entity with 20% or more ownership in the business. How to apply? As Kevin mentioned, the application process or information and process is on our website, www.preparedyork.com. And we are not, as we ordinarily do, our organization is not charging any application or processing fees. However, we will ask that the borrowers cover any out-of-pocket costs that we incur. That is likely going to be pulling a credit report. We will then, I sort of breezed over this, but the York County Economic Development Corporation is a local conduit for this, and we will then, when you submit your application to us, we'll process it and we'll submit it to the Commonwealth for their process, their review and approval. So if you are planning to apply, this checklist is extremely important. It's just, you can start compiling this now before you even go to our website, or most of it. One of the documents is a single application. Most of these forms are fillable. Some of them are exhibits that you will upload, but basic information is going to be required. Who is the borrower? What's your EIN number? Who's the CEO? What is your operating address? Very basic information. It is extremely important that all of this information be complete. We are our protocol is we are reviewing complete applications as they come in the order that they come in, and we are time stamping those as well. The project narrative, very self-explanatory. What do you do? What do you need? How has COVID-19 impacted your business? We don't need a thesis. We just need a few sentences there. A company profile sheet. The W-9, the certificate of applicant, those are all pretty self-explanatory. Those are forms that are going to ask you for specific information about you as the individual owner or your business. Again, just fill in the blanks. What's your EIN number? If you're an individual, what's your social security number, etc. Very, very simple, very straightforward. Just answer the questions. Credit reports, if you have access to pulling a free credit report, we will accept that if it's relatively current. If not, we will pull that. That will take time. So if you have the ability to do that, I encourage you to do so. That'll speed up the process. We will need company business financial information and or tax return. We also need a debt schedule. The debt schedule, another question we've been getting is that business debt and personal debt. That is just business debt. only business debt. And it's extremely important that that be very clear, also legible. That would be very helpful as well. Personal financial statement, that is where you put your personal assets and liabilities. So if you have a personal mortgage, that would go on the personal financial statement. That's another question that we've been getting. And we need a personal financial statement. There is an uploadable or a downloadable form on our website. We do need one of those for anyone who has 20% or more ownership interest in the business. Your spouse only needs to be included if they have ownership interest in the business. So I can't emphasize enough that it's important for all of this information to be complete.
Okay, I think that's it on the PETA, the states program. For now, we will jump to Q&A after Robin goes, and we'll turn right over to Robin, who is with the Shippensburg SBDC. Thank you, Robin. And thank you both for taking this hour. We know you guys are swamped and are trying to respond to everyone in Pennsylvania right now.
Yes, yes. All right, so can everybody hear me? You can hear me okay?
Yep, all good.
Okay. You can go on over to the next slide. So we can get moving here. Okay, so recently the state of Pennsylvania has been declared a disaster area on the federal side. So any county now within the Commonwealth can apply for the SBA Disaster Loan. These loans are unique in that the fact that they can be used for nonprofits and for for-profits. However, though, it is a loan, so you will have to repay it back. And they can be used to pay expenses that you've had, like payroll, fixed expenses, other bills that are being paid because you can't pay them right now because of the impact that has happened from the disaster. They are normal loan payments. However, you cannot use the SBA Disaster Loan in order to pay another SBA loan. So just as a heads up on that. So you can't just claim, well, I have $25,000 in a SBA 7A loan, so I was hoping that I could use this loan to pay that off. No, it's supposed to be used for things such as rent, all the fixed costs that you have, payroll that you have not been able to pay due to the disaster. You can go on over to the next slide. You must have a physical presence in an area that has the disaster. So obviously we're in an unprecedented time, the whole entire country. You must have an acceptable credit history. Now, I will say they are being incredibly generous on the credit history part. If you do have a credit lock, I would remove that before you apply. But they are being very generous on the credit score. But we don't want people that are, near 550 applying, but they will be checking your credit, so make sure you have that. Make sure you review your credit score. Go to annualcreditreport.com before, just to make sure that it's, looking okay. We have had questions, if we are a new business and we only have maybe a couple of months of expenses and revenue, yes, you can still apply. They do not want pre-venture businesses applying, but if you are still new, you can apply. The ineligible entities, agriculture has always been a no with the SBA. They usually are over on the agricultural side on the going completely blank on that one. Charity organizations, they can't apply, and casinos and racetracks cannot apply. But most other small businesses can apply. There's a lot of questions right now with nonprofits. So if there's any nonprofits on here, the SBDCs always work with for-profits. So, I don't have much information on how the nonprofits is working, and there is still a lot of confusion on that. Next slide. So the interest rate is 3.75 for small businesses. For nonprofits, it's 2.75. I will say, if you do not think you can make this loan payment, if you do not think that you can make it and pay it off in the future, I wouldn't apply for it, because whenever you apply for a federal loan, if you default on it, then you're not going to be eligible for any other federal backed loans. So that's student loans, other SBA loans, first-time home buyer loans, FHA loans, that kind of stuff. So if you really don't think that you will be able to pay it back, I wouldn't apply. All the loans are up for 30 years. So that's, you know, really expands it out compared to some other SBA loans that are a shorter time period. And it can go up to 2 million. Now, a lot of people are saying, hey, I'm going through the application and there's no spot that I can write down how much I want in a loan. It's not up to you to decide how much you want in a loan. The SBA will be reviewing the last year's tax returns, and they will make that decision based on what your gross margin was, and then they will do 50% of that. And it can go up to 2 million. Now, I will say loans under $25,000 will not need collateral. Loans above $25,000 will need to be secured. Obviously, they're not going to be, they're going to take whatever they can, but they also have said too that they are not going to deny any loans if there's no collateral. So don't stress so much about that one. You can go to the next slide. Before you apply, there's forms that you can print up. I highly recommend you do that because if anybody has tried to go onto the SBA website right now to apply for this, it keeps, you know, it's timing out. It's very overloaded. You have to think about every small business in the nation right now is going on to it. It's very overloaded. So we recommend that people print the forms up and get all the documents, all the information onto those forms. So whenever you sit down to do the online application, you can then just have the answers right there and you can plug it in. Make sure you're not using Chrome or anything like that. It works best with Microsoft Edge or Explorer. We do highly recommend that you complete the application online because you will get a quicker turnaround. If you do it by paper, you know, you're mailing it in, there is an address you can mail it to, but it's going to definitely take a longer time. And
Robin, there was a question on a question just now about how long do you think SBA will take to turn around answers?
About 21 days, but some people are getting, they've already started sending out information as to who's been denied, and that is going to the local, the regional office. So for us, it would be the Philadelphia office, and they are going to get a listing of everybody that has been denied. Most of those denials are because of a credit score or because something is missing or inaccurate on the application. So they are then going to be reaching out to everybody saying, hey, this is why you got denied. They give you 2 more chances to apply again. So if you get one of those, or if you find out you've been denied, there is ways to correct that. So anyway, you will need your tax returns. You're going to need information. They will use your QuickBooks printout, anything that shows what you spent money on within the last, you know, so many months in the last year with your tax returns. And you can see the rest of the information on here as to what they're going to need. Anybody that has more than 20%, they will need to put their information in. I've had a lot of questions from people saying, well, we have partners and we don't like to share our personal information with our partner. The truth is you guys are just going to need to put that information on right now. This is that kind of a situation. So that's one question that I've gotten a lot of recently. All right, you can go to the next slide. For more information, that's the actual website where you can apply for the disaster loan. And then we have our website on there and contact information. And we do have this listing here, the PASBDC network. There's 15 of us across the Commonwealth. We are holding daily webinars with the SBA that actually walks through how to complete the SBA application online. So if you are looking to apply for that, please join one of those webinars because I think that's a great first step on doing that. And I think that is it for my section.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you, Robin. Thank you, Kenneth. Just as a quick highlight, I know we're getting some questions via the chat and the Q&A feature. We are doing our best to get answers as best as possible. We likely will ask Robin and Kenneth to help us some of these questions after the webinar is over. So if we do not get to your question right now live, we will do our absolute best to get back to you as soon as humanly possible. So we're going to start with some of the Q&A and start with some of the questions that we had received via registration. And Suli, are you going to read off one of those?
Yes. So one of the questions we received, if you can hear me, was, can I apply for both the state and the federal loan program?
Yes, and I recommend that people apply for both because you're not forced to take the federal loan. But when you think about it, a 21-day turnaround, and maybe you need to recorrect your application, it makes sense to apply for the SBA loan. And if you qualify for the state loan, to apply for that. And then depending on how it turns out, you can choose which one. So I've been telling everybody to apply for both.
Great.
Yes, we know we are not aware of any restrictions on that either. How I'm coaching people is that, in theory you can't double dip, but most businesses are likely going to have enough need that they might be able to use both loan programs.
Great, thank you. A question we received earlier that we've seen in the Q&A box as well. Can I apply if I'm a startup with currently not much revenue?
So from the state loan program, they are not prohibited, but keep in mind, this is a program where the Commonwealth is looking for a 1-to-1 debt service coverage ratio, which means that you need to demonstrate that historically your cash flow is enough to cover your debt service on at least a 1-to-1 ratio. With startups, sometimes that can be a challenge. Additionally, if you're a startup, keep in mind the loan request amount is based on a look-back period. So if you're a startup, literally, and you don't have 3 or 6 months of operating expenses, you won't be able to apply for a state loan.
Right, and I agree with the federal loan. You can have a few months of operations, but they're going to base the loan amount on your gross revenue or gross margin from last year. So if you only have a couple of months, the amount that you're going to get is not going to be a larger amount.
Okay, thank you. Some of the other questions that were received earlier, time and length of waiting period, those were answered. So I'm going to shift to some from the Q&A, but again, feel free to send them in that section. Is there a different criteria for seasonal businesses?
Not that I'm aware of.
Good question.
Yeah.
I know that has been a question that has come up in particularly Adams County, and I don't have a good answer to that. I think my suggestion would be prepared to. We're looking at annual. We want to look at annual information, so I think that will work out just from that standpoint. We want to look at what's your annual debt service and what's your annual cash flow, which takes into account the seasonality.
Okay, thank you. Another question, how do we know how much to apply for, I guess, with both loans?
Okay. I'll start with that one, and the state loan program is prompting us to look at loan requested amount a little differently. Again, the loan request amount, the loan that you request is calculated based on looking back either 3 or 6 months, depending on whether you are a service/retail business or not. So again, if you're a retail service business, you're going to look back 6 months and calculate how much you've actually spent on operating expenses. If that's $100,000, let's say, then you can apply for half of that because service/retail businesses have a match requirement. So you can apply for half of that 6-month look back period. If you are not a retail or service business, the look back period is 3 months. If you spent $100,000 in the last 3 months on eligible working capital expenses, you can apply for $100,000. That's what your loan request can be. So it is making us look at it a little differently.
Right. And for the SBA loan, like I said, you can't say how much you want to apply for. The SBA will make that determination based on your needs, your previous tax returns, evidence that you've had, hardship, and the one thing they don't want, that's why they're going to be looking at your cash flow and all the documents from the last year, because they want to make sure that it's evidence that your business is having hardship because of the disaster, not currently, not prior to it. You were showing a negative cash flow, you were showing a downward slide in sales, a downward slide in everything, and they're going to say, well, you were already under stress to begin with. Your business was already struggling. So they're going to make that determination looking back on it, and then also verify.
If I could comment on that, Robin made a good point. It sort of goes beyond the question, but with the state program, we are looking at cash flow and debt service before this event. Again, with the same philosophy as what Robin said. If you were not able to meet your debt service before this situation, that may, that certainly may be a hurdle for you to use this program.
Okay, a couple of other questions that we've received here. On the single application, can I ask this for you? There is a spot called NAICS code. What's that?
Right, NAICS code is North American Industrial something classification, NAICS. If you Google NAICS.com, you can put in some keywords and find out what your NAICS code is. NAICS is a commonplace way to describe industries in North America. If you're a manufacturing, you're going to be 31, I think, to 31 something, and they're it can be a two-digit number, a 4-digit number. It keeps going out as you get more specified. So if you're a manufacturer, you might be 31. If you manufacture widgets, then you might be 31 something else. If you make widgets that are plastic, then you might be, see where I'm going. It's just a way to classify your business. For this purpose, you could provide a 4-digit one. Again, go to NAICS.com, Google what you do, and you can find out what that is.
And just to jump on that, the NAICS code is also important with the SBA loan because they make the determination if you're a small business based on the industry. So it's not just always 500 employees or below. It might be based, if you're in manufacturing, it might be based on total sales or whatever it might be. So.
All right, ladies, could I rapid fire a couple questions at you?
Ooh, sure.
Do your best to see how we can answer these. All right, these are some of the live questions we've been receiving. What if you just added a new building and have costs for the new facility?
So again, from the state perspective, your loan amount is going to be determined by your operating expenses before that, in the last 3 months or 6 months. That can include debt service. So the answer to that is sort of yes. Again, if you are successful in getting a state loan based on your look back of operating expenses, you can use that pretty much however you wish going forward.
Right, and on the federal side, it depends whether or not that you built the building. Are you using a loan to do it? The SBA loan is not really supposed to be paying back other loans. It's supposed to be for the working capital and the things that you've been needing to pay for to keep things covered over the next couple of months.
Hopefully this is an easy one. Business taxes or personal taxes, and how many years?
For the state, we're not asking for personal at this point. We do want a personal financial statement. We'd like to see a year of business taxes, but what we really need is a year financial statement. It's sometimes harder to do a cash flow with a tax return, just because the whole goal is to minimize your income on a tax return. And when you're doing a cash flow, you want to maximize it. So at any rate, I don't know about the SBA. That's probably more.
Yeah, I know that they say be prepared to show up to 3 years of tax returns, but they're definitely looking for last year's tax returns, last year's, like a QuickBooks thing that you can have that shows what's going on. But just like Kanatha said, you don't always see a perfect snapshot of what's going on with cash flow with the income statement.
Along those lines, a good segue. We had another question saying that asking if they can submit their QuickBooks balance sheet and P&L, and our applications accept that.
Yes. It can be internally generated. That's fine. One of the challenges we've had is that we need to have sufficient data in those, and whatever format you give it to us, it has to have sufficient information in order for us to do the cash flow calculation. So if you give me expenses and I don't know what they are, if you just give me a lump sum, I don't know what part of that is interest or depreciation. So we just need we need to make sure that we have enough information to be able to complete our process.
From Rhonda, she had asked if she can apply even if her lease is ending in April and she's still looking for a new location.
Yeah.
Yeah. The only question I would have is if it's for an expansion, because you're not supposed to use the SBA loan for an expansion. So if she was looking to get a bigger building and expand her inventory and all that, then it can't be used for that because it has to be used for working capital shortages.
Right. And I keep going back. The state loan amount will be based on a look back of operational expenses. If for successful loan applicants at closing, the state will disperse funds and the business will be able to use those for operational costs of their, as they deem appropriate. They'll just have to keep, give consideration that it will have to be paid back at the end of 3 years.
We have a company who's been in business for several years, but recently changed ownership within the last few months. Will that affect the eligibility to apply for a loan?
Not from the state loan program standpoint. Again, is cash flow there to cover debt service? And does the company fit all of the other eligibility requirements under hired employees, full-time employees,
right.
etc.?
I would agree with Kenneth. I mean, anybody that has more than 20% ownership at that time, they would be fine.
Thank you. There's an individual filling out the paperwork as we speak on the single application. So this is the state's application. But Kenneth, what should they use for working capital?
Again, the working cap, that is the loan amount that they wish to request, and it's based on the look back. Again, we're looking at this very differently than a typical loan request. A loan request is, oh, I think I'm going to need so much money in the future, and that's what I want to apply for. And this is working differently. Again, your working capital loan request will be based on a 3-month look back if you're not a retail or service firm. If you are a retail or service firm, that look back will be 6 months. So that is the amount, I think the question is, what loan amount are you requesting? And that's based on the look back.
Okay.
The reason, if I may, the reason for that is the state, because of how this program, layers of it have been legislated, if you will, the state can get this money out on the street quicker if they are funding your past expenses, things that you've already paid for. So that's really, that's one of the reasons behind it.
This is a tough question. This is a federal one, and it relates to the recently enacted Kerrs Act, or will be enacted. I have 1 full-time employee and 2 owners. Is it best to lay off and apply for unemployment or is it best to apply for loans? And what is the paycheck protection portion of the loan? That's a tough one with the recent legislation.
Yeah, and I am not going to have that answer because I was just on a call this morning. I mean, I think there's like 900 pages of that thing. I haven't had time to review any of that to get any information.
The best answer to that one is we apologize, still learning just like everyone else.
Yeah.
And that's a tricky situation.
I know, yeah.
Let's check back with our staff, and as we learn more, we'll try to distill that information. Here's a question. Am I correct in understanding that for a service business, meaning a salon or a barbershop, that for the 0% loan, so the state loan, that we can apply for half of our costs, rent or utilities from the last 6 months?
Correct. If you spent $100,000 on rent, supplies, payroll, if you spent $100,000 in the last 6 months, you can apply for $50,000.
Mm-hmm. Correct. And salons and service industries can apply on the federal SBA side.
To the individual that asked about the payroll protection, we have an answer that was submitted. 8 weeks of cash flow assistance through 100% of the federally guaranteed loans to employers who maintain their payroll from February 15th to June 30th of this year. A portion of those loans will be forgiven on allowable expenses. So that's a very difficult answer right there. So again, if you want to connect with us offline, we can hopefully help you there. A real estate investing remodeling company be considered retail or service business?
Well, if they're doing real estate investing, the SBA has never been into that anyway, because that's, it's real estate investing. If they're actually a remodeling company, that's a little bit of a different situation, that's more construction. So I guess it would depend. Are we talking about flipping homes and that's what they're doing? Because that would be a no on the federal side.
Same with the state. Economic development loans are designed for, even though, for instance, with the state program, in this particular case, there is no job creation or retention requirement. Typically, economic development is intended for the benefit of the job entity, the entity that is employing folks. An investment, that gets a little tricky. Real estate investment.
Okay, we have a couple more questions here. My company is a startup that was actively searching for investors. Now that is nearly impossible. Can I receive a loan with good personal credit score but no reasonable business revenue?
I would say no, because there's no history of sales or anything.
Right, and again, the loan amount with the state program is based on your operating expenses for the last 3 or 6 months, as well as your historic cash flow, your debt service coverage ratio.
To that last, thank you. To that last question, it is a house flipper, and on the state side, Kennetha, would the PETA loan be eligible?
I'm gonna say I'm 80% sure no.
I'm gonna say 98% sure.
I might go up to 95. That's going to be tricky.
Yeah.
I have been in business. This is Roseanne. I've been in business for 10 years and built a new facility last year that was finished in December. Now she is shut down. Not sure what she should do with her business having changed with a new indoor facility.
What's the question? I'm not sure.
Let me see. Is the business considered a startup because it's in a new facility? I think that's how I read that question.
It is not. If the business was a legal entity that operated before moving into the new facility, it's an existing business. Again, we're looking at, for the state loan program, we're going to look at the last year of income and debt service.
Yep. Same.
Okay. I asked a couple of questions here. What many types of expenses will be forgiven? example, payroll. I assume that's on the federal side. We know payroll will be, correct?
Yeah.
Portion of eligible payroll.
Yeah, supposedly, yeah.
Adding the disclaimer that we did not write the legislation, nor have we read through all of it.
Yes.
So Paul, check back with us on that legislation,
Yeah.
but we know that eligible payroll will be forgiven a portion of.
Right.
Does this owner need to first seek traditional bank lender financing before seeking SBA financing?
No, you don't need to go to the bank to do this. You can go directly to this is the only time the SBA does direct lending, is in disaster loans. You can go directly to the website and apply. You don't have to show that you've had financing elsewhere.
I apologize. We're trying to juggle a couple questions here.
Okay.
On the state loan program, would auto repair be classified retail service?
Yes.
Okay. And food production business with, we're in a food production business with a commodity that is greatly needed. Are there special provisions given to manufacturing companies? I think that would be the waiver program through the Department of Community and Economic Development.
Yeah, that's all I can think of. I can't think of any special SBA loan programs, disaster programs.
And
No, for
Go ahead,
the state
Kenneth.
program, it would make it fall into the 3-month look back.
if we request the loan for rent and utilities for the small business, is there a possibility the loan would be forgiven?
State, no.
Yeah, I don't.
Federal, I don't believe so as of now.
Yeah, we don't have any of that information.
The state program is a loan program with the expectation that it will be paid back.
Right, and that is what the SBA is saying too, an expectation will be paid back. So that's why I stressed if you know for sure you will not be able to repay this loan, then don't apply because it could mess you up for future things.
For the retail business, they want 6 or 12 months of the balance sheet.
We'd like a year.
Yeah.
A year.
Mhm.
And one more time, Kenneth, what is the working capital? What are they putting in that box on the application?
Right. In the working capital box, that is the amount, the loan amount that you are requesting. That is the loan amount that you are requesting. That loan amount is determined by a look back period of your operating expenses. And that look back period is 3 months if you are a non-retail or service business. It is 6 months if you are a retail or service business. And again, if you're a non-retail service, that look back period is 3 months. And if you spent $100,000 on operating expenses in that last 3 months, your loan request can be, doesn't have to be, but it can be $100,000. If you are a service or retail business and you spent $100,000 on operating expenses in the last 6 months, your loan request can be a maximum of $50,000 or half of that look back of expenses.
Okay, a couple more. Are there prepayment penalties for either program?
No.
I believe not. I believe the state would happily take it.
So,
We'll save
the feds too, yes.
It will save you interest.
Can the loans be used to pay for existing equipment loan payments? And if so, could they be used to pay off the loans?
Not if they're federally backed loans. They don't want to see you taking this loan to pay off another loan. They want to see that you're using this loan because you're having economic hardship and have not been able to make payments like rent and payroll and all those things. So
I can't answer that with the state program. I'm gonna say probably not, but keep in mind this program has been launched so quickly ahead of anticipated schedule. But that is not the intent of the program. The intent is to pay working capital, and paying off a loan is not working capital.
As a wholesale distributor, would my look back be 3 months or 6 months?
I believe that would be a 6-month, because that is not production.
Okay, we've got time for maybe 2 more questions here. Going off of the question about the 0%, so the state program, we can apply for half of our cost from the last 6 months. Would the loan be based on the monthly cost or total 6-month cost?
Say again, you
Correct?
You cut out on the last.
Would it be based on the monthly cost or the total 6-month cost?
Total 6-month cost. If in the last 6 months your eligible operating expenses, i.e. rent, utilities, inventory, supplies, payroll, if that was $100,000 in that last 6 months, your loan request can be up to half of that.
Will they approve? This is a good question from someone who's probably written for a grant before. Will they just approve or deny working capital amount requested, or potentially give you a portion of the request?
That is not, the state has not determined that yet, or if they have, that hasn't been communicated yet.
Yeah, and I don't have that information on, they will look up to a certain amount, but are you going to get the full amount? I don't.
And maybe to the intent of that question, I would apply for what you need.
Yeah.
In the profile, what should I put in CEO, as we have a corporate officer, as a president, and a vice president?
Whatever that title is what you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Whoever is the top dog.
Okay, so wherever the buck stops.
Yeah.
Would owner salaries or draws, the owner draw, be part of the Payroll Protection Forgiveness Program? Recognizing Robin or Kenneth, you may not know the answer to that as of yet.
Don't know that answer as of yet.
I don't know the answer either. My gut would say no, just because it's intended to keep staff on payroll. And that's payroll that pays a payroll tax, not an ownership.
Yeah.
Correct. This is, I can tell you that the state guidelines do have a restriction, and I urge everyone, before you submit an application, to actually read them. There is a prohibition in there, I believe, about reimbursing owners.
Yeah, and this SBA loans, they've always had that in there. They're not going to give you an SBA loan to pay yourself. So I would assume that would not be an option. So. Okay.
Shoot, I just clicked it. Dave Madej, what was your question there? I think here it is. Can you include cost of goods sold in the look back, or just fixed expenses?
I mean, I sort of recorded my answer, I think. It's literally operating expenses, which are going to be part of cost of goods sold, but literally, what are they? What was your payroll expense? What was your inventory? What was, and what did you pay for? Not just what did you, what expense did you accrue, but what did you pay for?
Right. Federal side, I mean, if you decided to spend a ton of money updating your inventory, I don't know if you could show that necessarily you're having an impact with that, and that's why you need the loan program to pay back. So that's why they're mostly looking at fixed working capital. Okay, we want to give Kennetha and Robin a virtual round of applause and a virtual high five. Thank you, ladies, for the mental Olympics that you just performed in a short span of time. We want to let everyone know that we have recorded this. We will post it to preparedyork.com. I know our staff is checking to see if we can email a copy out to all of the participants. If we can, we will. If we can't, we'll try to communicate to everyone that we've posted it. Please keep checking back with preparedyork.com. We'll continue to post as much information as possible. As we get it, we try to convey it out to you. And please be patient with our staff that are working on this, and Robin included. They are doing a Herculean amount of work in these last couple of days. And we know everyone is under a lot of duress right now.
We thank you all for your patience. We thank you for joining today. As we said, we will try to do these webinars more frequently. Thank you to all the individuals who are writing nice comments right now that I'm not sure if Kenneth and Robin can see. Ladies, thank you very much for taking the time out to help our community. We care about everyone very much. We're going to continue to do our absolute best. I know if we did not get to all questions today, right now we will continue to try to answer them and post answers. So thank you again, Kenneth. Thank you, Robin. No rest for the weary. I know we got to get back to applications that are pending. So thank you all for joining. Keep checking our Facebook page, sign up for our e-newsletters. We're trying to push communications out daily, if not multiple times a day. And we're keeping our social media active. And again, as we learn information, we will do our best to distill it and get it out to you to save you the anxiety of having to try to find it. Thanks, Kenneth. Thanks, Robin. Robin, any information that you want to share?
No, just like I said, make sure you register for some of those webinars if you are interested in applying for the SBA loan, because they're very informative. So, and contact us if you need any help. So.
Awesome. Thank you, Kenneth. Thank you, Robin. Thank you all for joining today.
All right. Thank you. Have a good day, everybody.
Who is all behind the scenes putting this together. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.